It's February 24th. I'm going to call this meeting of the Gloucester School Committee to order and remind everybody that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. If you're calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or a device, there is a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. Maria, could we have a roll call for attendance?
Certainly. Ms. Wiesen.
Present.
Kathy Clancy.
Present.
Mr. Fafsa.
Present.
Chairman Pope.
Here.
Ms. Prince.
Here.
Mayor Taken.
Here.
And Ms. Watson.
Okay.
Here.
Okay, I'm going to ask you all to join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. First order of business is oral communications. Oral communications, the public shall have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to school committee business to appear before the school committee. State their problem without debate, and the matter will be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with the permission of the chair. Persons speaking under oral communications shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of the prepared communication to the recording secretary. The school committee chair shall not allow complaints as to individual performance or character. Okay, that being said, I'm going to open it up. We have two members of the Cape Ann Climate Coalition who have requested to speak to the school committee and invite you to a meeting. And I'm going to recognize Lisa Smith and Candace Wheeler. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, Candace will go first. Go ahead, Candace.
Hi, my name's Candace Wheeler, and Lisa Smith and I are here this evening representing the Cape Ann Climate Coalition. And we would love to have the school committee become aware of a tremendous opportunity for responding to climate change issues. The idea is that our school bus fleet could become an electric school bus fleet. We have been looking into the electrification of school buses for a couple of months now. And recently we became aware that our neighboring city of Beverly is well along in developing a pilot program. They already have one electric school bus in their fleet, and they are about to get another. Cities and towns have approached this both in the same way that people currently have a lease with a diesel bus company. You can create a lease with an electric bus company. And also some communities actually own their own buses and have to raise capital to procure them. But we are just entranced by Beverly's approach because the company that they are working with, which is Highland Electric Transportation, it essentially offers a turnkey approach where Highland Electric acquires the electric buses, essentially works with the city to establish them on the city's routes. They maintain them. They handle all the operations. The only thing that they don't take care of is providing the drivers for those buses. But they take all the capital cost and the risk up front. And the city is able to implement the program very effectively without a city outlay of capital funds and at approximately the same price that they currently spend on leasing diesel buses. HET, which is Highland Electric Transportation, is located in Hamilton, Massachusetts, so they're nearby. We've taken a look at one of their excellent presentations, and we're very excited about the possibility that this may be applicable to the city of Gloucester or to all of Cape Ann. And Lisa, who has a daughter in the Gloucester schools, is going to talk to you a little bit about some of the advantages of participating with electric school buses. Lisa, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. So I'm a Gloucester resident. I have a daughter in the Gloucester schools, like Candace said, and there are health aspects involved with diesel buses. The diesel fumes have a lot of pollutants, and the air inside the buses are if you think the pollutants are bad when you're outside the bus, there are 5 times more pollutants inside the bus than there are outside the bus. So the kids are going back and forth to school, breathing in this dirty air. Whereas if we had electric school buses, there aren't any pollutants on it, and the kids would be breathing clean air. And plus the city's air would be cleaner. And then another reason as a parent, I believe we should go electric is because I'm not in the Cape Ann Climate Coalition because of my future, because I'll be gone before the really bad effects of climate change happen. It's for the future of the kids in the school. They're gonna be up against a lot with climate change, and we have to get our carbon footprint down really far, get the greenhouse gases out of the air, and really do this now, not tomorrow, but right now, because it is a climate emergency. And so transportation, according to the EPA, has 28% of our greenhouse gases. So by getting buses on Cape Ann that are electric, it'll really bring down our greenhouse gas footprint on Cape Ann. So that's another reason. And a side effect, if we do electrify and we have like solar arrays on a Mealy or the new school, it'll to run these school buses, it'll be a great STEM kind of education for the kids. They'll see science in action, and they'll be going to school on these buses, and they can see how they're getting powered by either the wind turbines or the solar panels. So that's another thing. And the only other thing I want to say is that we've had webinar kind of meetings with experts on public buses and on school buses. We have 3 videos so far made, and they're on our website. It's capeannclimatecoalition.org. I'm going to send you all an email with all this information in it, and from the Cape Ann Climate Coalition. And we also have another webinar with the director of the Beverly Public Schools transportation, the buses there. His name's Dana Krushank, and like Candace said, they've already implemented electric buses there, and he's going to talk to us about his experience with HET. They're the turnkey bus approach. So that's March 15th. So I'll give you a save the date email with that too. And I don't know, that's about it. We should just get on that green bus to sustainability, because our kids' futures really depend on this.
And can I throw in one last thought? And that is, what we would love to do is find somebody who is connected with the school committee or the school superintendent's office that we could collaborate with to see if we can build a path towards doing something like this. Whoever you would recommend, to us, we would be very happy to provide lots of information, legwork, support, whatever we can do to encourage this outcome. So we look for your guidance as a school committee and guidance from the school superintendent on how we might begin this. And thank
Oh,
you very much for seeing us this evening.
And I just want to say, we're here for you. There's over 200 people. Actually, the mayor comes to, is on the Cape Ann Climate Coalition too. And there's a lot of people with all this wealth of experience, engineers, people who've worked in the environment, city planners, town planners. There's just a lot of people that you could draw from to, you know, get down to zero carbon emissions.
Mhm.
So
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. And we look forward to getting the invitation to the March 15th meeting and as well as viewing your videos. Does anybody on the committee have any questions or comments? Ben?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa and Candace, and also Susan, for your leadership on this. Adam Mayo, our Transportation Director, to the committee through the chair, has been in touch with the Beverly Transportation Director and spoken to him and gotten some really helpful details about costs and process and how they've been doing this. And also, Adam's also participated in a recent webinar that was brought to his attention by the Climate Action coalition. And so but happy to work with the committee and the Climate Coalition on doing this. It's a very exciting area that's developing rapidly. The leasing of electric buses is very, very new. Prior to this, you really had to own them. So that's promising. And also the technology is developing very quickly. While there are some challenges possibly on distances, those are changing rapidly as well. So it's certainly a place that we should look into, and happy to come back for another meeting and do some presentation and updating on the committee and work with you on it. So thank you, Jonathan. And thank you,
Great.
folks.
Terrific. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
We
Okay.
will exit and leave you to your business.
Okay. Is there any other people who would like to speak under oral communications? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to our to recognitions. Are there any recognitions? Everybody's been on vacation, right? Melissa?
Thank you. I just want to do what I think we should do every meeting is just recognize all the hardworking staff for being in school and making Gloucester great, because that's what we are without kids in class, where many communities don't have our kids in class. So we couldn't do it without our staff. So I just want to give a big shout out to them. And also to the DPW. We're hearing a lot about the MTA talking about conditions of buildings and HVAC units and things like that now. And just want to recognize our DPW again for the tremendous job they did putting in the ionization machines and making our air good to address the COVID issues. So just a constant recognition that I think should be set out at every meeting till we're out of this pandemic.
Any other recognitions? Okay, then we'll move on to our Student Advisory Council, and Mia and Megan are here. So what's new? How was vacation?
Good. It was good. Thanks for having us. So to start off, I'm going to start with Secret Pal Week, which has been going on this week. And it's been really nice to show some love to our teachers. The Student Council and the NHS kids have been working really hard to pull this off because it is difficult. But the 8th grade Move Up Day. So the Student Council is working on a Move Up Day video for the 8th graders to showcase the school during the week. And that's going to be...
Oh, we lost you.
Mia, I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Mia. Oh, she can't hear us either.
Guidance Department is hosting a virtual Fafsa day on March 9th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., which is going to be really helpful. And the GHS Theater Program is hosting auditions for the spring musical, which is High School Musical. I'm so excited for that. The cast list is going to be posted later this week, and the show is pre-recorded and combining audio and socially distanced dance numbers. That's really cool. And for athletics, we have Mia Sala and Andrew Coelho have won the Moynihan Lumber Student Athlete Award, which recognizes student athletes for their academic and athletic accomplishments. And I'm going to throw it to Megan to finish it off as usual.
Megan?
Hi, sorry, my dad just walked in and distracted me. News from the Health Center. The free food locker continues to be very busy and connects students with the open door. Students and family can choose between 30 foods, including healthy and like snacky items. And then this month through February, we've had 56 food locker orders, which 42 of them were home deliveries. We had 25 GHS students and their families receive food from the free food locker. There are 17 students who regularly help with the operation of the free food locker. And these students are members of the GHS Health Center, Youth Advisory Council, ROTC, NHS, Transition Program, Life Skills Program, and students who are just caught up with the homeroom time. And the students are instrumental from the movement that we receive from the food deliveries, from the open door to lifting bags and boxes and groceries in the car. So, you know, the Health Center, this was something that since I've been a freshman, we've been thinking about doing, and this year it really skyrocketed and it's made such a difference in so many students' lives. It's truly amazing. They're doing a great job. Next up, we have the door decorating contest. We talked about a little bit about this a couple of meetings ago where students could decorate the doors, just, you know, add some cheers to the hallways. They picked a winning door. It was I'm going to butcher this name, Miss Cavelli's door, which was in the Anchors program. Her door was decorated by her students, which was a quote from a book, but it also had pictures of Black History Month and a painting with a tree with hearts all around it. And it was simply beautiful, and it had meaning, and it was great. And then finally from DECA, students are competing online this week for a state competition throughout the next couple of weeks as well. The students qualified for states, which are Eliana Ferrari, Ryan Bergen, Daniel Beaton, Daniel Hafey, Cara O'Connor, and Andrew Coelho in sales and finance.
Great. Any questions?
I have a comment. First of all, Mia and Megan, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate what you're doing, especially with the food. That's so important. Today I was with the Attorney General on a Zoom about the lack of food across the whole country. It's just amazing that simple things that we never had a want, everyone's wanting, especially here in Massachusetts. And they say, you know, a child with food has, you know, a better attention span, has lesser problems, because the fact is that's one least thing they have to worry about. So that's so important. And I want to thank you and applaud you for bringing that forward, because when a student does it with another student, it doesn't make someone feel bad. It's not like a handout. It's like, okay, we are all students. We're all, you know, together in this, and we're going to make it. So that's so important. So I really applaud you on that. I tell your whole class, thank you so much. And if you need a donation, let us know.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you very much, and have a good rest of the week. And as always, you're welcome to stay.
Thank you guys so much.
Jonathan, if I could chime in one thing about the high school, which Mia and Megan mentioned to us last time, was the winter musical, winter performance of the radio play Disaster, which I got a chance to watch with my wife, and I spent most of the hour just laughing my head off. It was really well done. The performances were just fantastic. The production, which looked a lot like a Zoom call, was ingenious, but the performances were just great, and such a range that the actors had. So many different types of characters each of them played, but just well done, well produced, well directed, and it was a real joy, and certainly added a nice levity in a time that can be so difficult. So really just a great job to all the high school kids who did that, and also Jessica Kirk, our theater teacher, just a fantastic job. So
I got an invite and I paid, but I couldn't link on. It wouldn't let me go on. So, you know what? Really, Ben, did you steal my tickets?
I might have.
Okay, well, are there any plans to make that available again? Do you know?
We should find out because it's
Yeah.
well worth streaming.
Yeah.
I believe it's going to be on some type of on demand that they're making, but I can definitely double check with
Yeah.
Dirk.
Because it was just a 2-day window, I
Yeah,
think,
I
for
think
that.
we like last.
Mia, we can't hear you.
Sorry, what did you say? I was gonna say I think it's just like last time. That's how they're gonna do it, like the streaming service.
Okay. Well, let us know when it becomes available. Thanks. Okay, anything else with the students? Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda anybody would like to remove for additional scrutiny?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second,
Okay. Maria, could we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
Mr. Fafsa,
Yes.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
yes.
and Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to deliberations on educational issues. And I will hand it over to Superintendent Lemus.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, folks. We're going to start off. I got a great email from one of the high school teachers imploring me that when we have presentations with Principal Cook or Principal Beatty, to have them go early in the program because they need to get up very early and they work very late. So we're going to start off with an update from Principal James Cook about a great new partnership that is launching at, or program, I should say, is launching at the high school.
Thank you, Ben, for that introduction. And it's so great to be able to add another bit of kind of good news from the high school about things that we've been doing on top of what Megan and Mia presented to you all moments ago. So what I'm here to talk about tonight, Ben and I were just reviewing some of the initiatives going on at the high school the other day. And this one really stood out to him as a theme that the committee has been very interested in. And we're launching the training part of this this week. So it seemed very timely. So he asked me to come on and talk with you about the Mental Health Ambassador Program at Gloucester High School. So this Mental Health Ambassador Program is really the brainchild of GHS Adjustment Counselor Amy Cam. And Amy and I have been working on this through this year. The core belief at the heart of the program is that it's essential that student voices really are at the head of the table for discussions about mental health and wellness, right? We want the students at the head of that table and providing input into the paths that we take to support mental health and to promote well-being in our schools and in the community at large as well. So we want to do that. We want to empower students with some knowledge and some skills that can help them advocate for mental health and for wellness. So where are we headed with this? So in the long-term sort of vision of this, ultimately, the students themselves with the knowledge and skills that they gained through some training are going to help shape the program and determine the initiatives that are created. Some of the possibilities so far are leading community forums, serving as representatives on the social emotional learning mental health steering committee that we have, presenting to health classes at the high school, middle school, and elementary schools in our district, sponsoring speakers, assemblies, and workshops with their peers and with the community at large, and also participating in any activism and advocacy that supports mental health and wellness in the school and the larger community. So to this end, ambassadors will work to bring awareness about mental health and wellness. They're going to learn skills to support their peers and really focus on destigmatizing the seeking of help for mental health, and then give input in the programs and policy decisions that are relevant to mental health and also social emotional learning at Gloucester High School. The part that's starting right now, the part that actually there was an introduction on Tuesday and that the students will be really digging into tomorrow, is about 20 of our students to start, with a focus on underclassmen, right? So they have the longest ability to grow and influence the school. They begin training this week to become mental health ambassadors. This means that they're going to participate in a 75-hour training that's funded by the Department of Mental Health. The DMH is funding this whole thing. The training is called GIFT, Gathering Inspiring Future Talent, and it's made possible through a multi-level partnership that we have. So the first partner is the Unity Drop-In Center downtown at 6 Elm Street, right? Which is, and they're a program of JRI, the Justice Resource Institute. They're our main partner. The second partner is the Department of Mental Health. And then third, the consultant, Kim Bissett, who runs these trainings and brings speakers into the 75-hour training as well. All the trainings on Zoom, if folks are wondering about that kind of thing. So students are, these 20 or so students are logging on Tuesdays and Thursdays and to receive this training. The training costs about $30,000, but it's funded entirely by the Department of Mental Health. So we're really getting a very rich and robust curriculum for these students. The training focuses on developing leadership skills, communication skills, career development skills. So not only are the students contributing to us, they're also getting something out of it for themselves. And they develop a core gift, what's called a core gift personal mission statement. Like what is their vision of doing this work in their lives and for their community? So it's a real personal growth as well as this advocacy going on. So this gives we thought to start here and with this partnership with GIFT would give these ambassadors a solid foundation, right? Upon which they can then go forward and be the agents of change that we're really looking for, and be agents of change among their peers and in our community, and bring awareness to mental health challenges, and create opportunities for fostering mental health and wellness in the schools and in the community at large. So that's what we're working on here in the midst of all this other stuff. But it seems so important to prioritize this and really empower our students to be leaders in this area.
Great. Thank you, James. Any questions from the committee just for Principal Cook?
Samantha?
Thank you. Obviously, I love this. I love everything about this, and I'm so excited about it, and I can't wait to learn more. I'm just curious, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, what is the diversity makeup of the 20 students who are doing the 75-hour training?
Yeah, that's great. In terms of racial diversity and diversity in terms of gender identity and sexual orientation, it's an incredibly diverse group. Actually, it's a very interestingly diverse group. We'd like to get more boys involved, more male identifying students involved, right? So that's something we know. And like I can't say enough about Amy Cam, like envisioning this and also working on the details of this. Not everybody is able to have like great vision and also like work out details. And Amy's been so good at all of those pieces. But that is, one area, but really in terms of like representing some of the growing diversity in our school, it's a real, it's a very interesting group of students who will bring some different perspectives. But one of the things we do have our eye on, and Amy and I have talked about, is what are some populations we might be missing as we go forward that we can add to this group. That's definitely something very much on our minds.
Great, that's good to hear. It's so super important to have a diverse range of experience when doing something like this. So I appreciate that.
Laura?
Thank you. This sounds amazing. I don't know if I missed this, but I just wanted to ask, in empowering these students, is it both to advocate for themselves and their families as well as for their peers and the greater community? Sort of how, it feels like there's a lot of places where advocacy is important. Just wondering where this is directed or if it's all of the above.
Yeah, so it's definitely the way the particularly this initiating gift training. It's personal development and the personal vision, but that vision for your own journey to mental health and wellness, and advocacy, self-advocacy takes place in the context of the larger policies and available resources, as you all have talked about often, right? So they go together when we're working on ourselves. Part of that is within the context of the community. So that was one of the things that for us was really exciting about the partnerships, is that we share that vision, right? Of those two things are not separable. They go together. The personal journey to mental health and wellness and a community-wide journey to mental health and wellness go together. So that's how we see them, as fused together.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Melissa?
Thank you. I'm very happy to hear about the program. This is consistent with the program the mental health initiative, I think it was called. So I think one of the first programs that the students got together and started talking about mental health. Is this an extension of that or something different?
I think I missed, Melissa, I think I missed which program you were referring to.
So a couple of years ago, I want to say maybe 2 years before COVID hit, the high school students started a mental health youth initiative program. Is this an extension of that? Is it similar to that?
So yeah, so this is sort of picking that up and with the new.
Melissa, can you mute yourself, because I think you're causing a lot of distortion. Go ahead, James. Sorry.
Sure, yeah. So this is sort of picking that idea up and providing a new group of students with this solid foundation. We also have some things in place now at the school which will allow us, for instance, the extended homeroom time, places where we have opportunities to access for this group of students to help guide initiatives with a larger group of students that we didn't have a couple of years ago, right? Places where we can have the group outreach and that sort of thing. So this is a way of sort of like deepening and strengthening that work, but it's very much in the same spirit with, another generation of students. But I think in a richer way than we were able to do a couple of years ago.
And financially, how is this program going to be sustainable for future classes? I know the training is free this year, but how is it going to be sustainable?
So by growing our internal capacity with through these kinds of trainings and continuing our partnership with JRI, the Unity Drop-In Center, who've been a great partner with us going forward. We think we'll be able to have continued trainings going forward, but also that we're building capacity like among these students also for peer-to-peer training and building through partnerships going forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Safafia?
So let me give you a little bit of information also. About 2 years ago, pre-COVID, we were having a lot of emergency room visits with our students. James Cook, the staff of Leahy Mental Health, a lot of staff, some nurses, O'Malley School principals. We got together and we had an emergency call with Secretary Sutters from the Department of Public Health also. Some calls is because we had students and their grandparents who were the caregivers, and their parents were saying 13 days in emergency room and yet then no place to go. Then they would send them back to school, and some of the times that the teachers figured, they're out for 2 weeks, everything's fine with no follow-up. So we were very concerned, and so they got a partnership with JR, with Stephanie Sladen and Crystal, who's also Director of Community-Based Services in Gloucester, decided that they were going to get sponsorships, and they did get some sponsorship from the Department of Public Health, Mental Health actually, and with some other sponsorship. And they were supposed to open, but then COVID hit, at the old Common Crow in Browns Mall. It's supposed to be walk-in services. No one would be turned away. It didn't matter what health insurance for 16 to 24 years old. If you had any problems and you needed to see a counselor, what was going on, and that was supposed to be going. And then the Gloucester Public Health Department had Jessica Scholar, a youth initiative to help also with some programs. The DA also. So as you know that everyone, the concern now was from a lot of teachers saying that it's very difficult because you had your child in school and you could see some of the children who had some problems or were having difficulties. And we were more concerned of the students that weren't coming into school and what was happening. And this past COVID year, we've had more child attempted suicides than ever before. And so this program, and I am so glad that James Cook never gives up on any of the programs. It could be 3 years old and he's still going to bring it to fruition. So thank you, James. And also the Maley School and with Ben now. It's very, very important. This is one of my specialties as far as close to my heart, as you know. And so I get emotional. So it's very difficult because my husband killed himself and you don't know. You just don't know when something is going to hit. So when a child has no one else to talk to, here we are adults and don't know, or you have, attempted suicide from children and their parents are therapists and still don't know. I think that this program where you just saw our two students, amazing students, talk about how they sharing food. When it's another student saying to another student, hey, I feel the same way. Do you feel this way? There's someone you can talk to. We're not going to give up on you. We're here for you, and keep talking to them. I think that's going to be a bigger benefit than me going out to and say, you know what, guess what? They don't want to hear from adults or anything else, or you can't find any therapist. When Secretary Sutter said to me that there are 1,200 therapists, registered therapists, 90% don't take health insurance. Okay, that's a disgrace. So, and we're still fighting. And with COVID, everything was like, we're going through like a windmill, we're waiting for the wind to turn. But I am so glad that you have no idea. I am so proud, not glad, so proud of this school system jumping forward on these issues and talking openly about it. Our teachers, you've heard them during the beginning, the school committee, James, the principal, especially O'Malley, even the elementary, they're noticing. I'm so proud that we are talking about this and actually doing something. I have some information on it because they asked me to do a ribbon cutting with them. I will forward it all to you. It's amazing. Check out all the information on it. It's amazing. And we are so lucky that we do have these partnerships and we do have these sponsorships, because I don't think it's going to stop next year or the year after, because it's so important and it's a crisis that's hitting all around. So thank you again for bringing this forward and speaking openly about it.
Sure.
Yeah,
I will also add, I know it was buried a little bit in a previous presentation, but we also partnered with the Unity Drop-In Center for something we're calling the RAISE program that Amy Cam also again set up, where some students were having trouble, COVID related, we have to have students who are remote under COVID. And so these are students who for various reasons are struggling to get to school, but they're attending through the Unity Drop-In Center. They're getting support for academics that we're running through our remote students through Liz Moran and our Bridge program. And then they're also getting the other supports that Unity can offer at the same time. So that's another partnership. They're very creative about how to make some things work despite COVID. And we're trying to, the vision is different than it was when it got set up, as you were saying,
I just
Mayor.
wish, you know what? I'm throwing all you a kiss. I just wish that the public could hear all of this instead of hearing all the negativity in the Times or anything else, and knowing the positive. James, I really think that you and whoever you want should really go on 1623 and really promote this and really promote the positive, because I don't think, it's going to go out everywhere else. But you need to bring this forward. There are so many people that came forward, and parents and grandparents. I mean, they were texting us, and I was forwarding to you back then. Day by day, I'm in the emergency room. I don't know why I'm here, because there's no one helping me. My child, this is like I am at Times Square in New York. If you have a mental health problem and your child is going through this, this is worse, because it's chaotic going in and out. Another one, I am a grandparent, never thought I'd be here. I don't know what to do. Is there any support groups? I mean, this is just every day we were getting emails and texts and all these things. And you yourselves, I know every one of you, because I saw your names, certain parents would contact you, help us. And the biggest fear is they're going to age out. The biggest fear is when they age out. So when we asked the DA to come on board and we asked him, we said, what happens when there's a 13-year-old or 14-year-old and they'll hurt someone? And, it happened, in other schools. What happens then? And they says usually, either a person with severe mental health problems could either hurt themselves, hurt others, do something wrong, end up on drugs, all. You need, and then they age out. And that's what you want to do. I am so I am so proud of we're talking openly about this. And thank you for letting me speak a little bit extra on this. It's so important. But thank you again, Mr. Cook, and all of your staff and everyone that does this, and because it's so important. And we don't want them to age out. We want them to grow nicely. We want them to be, a principal, a mayor. We want them to give them hope. And this is where you can, because you know what? Mental health is so important to address at an early age and actually see it. And we're not trained. And so when you can get trainers to train and it's young, you know what? I am so ecstatic. I'm so sad that, okay, COVID's still here, but we're still going to take this. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll bring that back to my staff as well. So thank you. Yep.
Jonathan?
Kathy, you had a question? You had your hand up this?
I didn't have a question. I mean, the mayor certainly was effusive about, how delighted she is with this program. And I just wanted to say how hard it is for everything that's happening in the schools to kind of keep initiatives rolling. And this is an example of, something really, really impactful that continues to happen despite all the challenges. And I know Amy Cam has a heart of gold and, and is so skilled and knowledgeable that she really has broad and deep reach, impacting so many of our students and families. And I think the peer-to-peer aspect is just really powerful. So I'm delighted to hear about it.
Samantha?
I'm just hoping that we could invite some staff from Unity to one of our meetings just to give sort of the community and the committee an overview of what they're doing.
Okay.
I don't know who, Jonathan, if you want to reach out or if that's
Sure.
something James or Ben could.
We can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Ben, you want to continue? You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, that helps. James, thank you so much for being here. I just want to highlight a couple of my thoughts on this quickly. One, as you've heard me say again and again, this is, what I really hope we continue to do and do quite a bit here in Gloucester is, asking students to get involved in big things, and that's about having them do important work, impactful work. And of course, the mental health ambassadors is a great example of that. I also am really appreciative of it because it's leveraging internal resources and also external resources. So the work with JRI and others is just a great way of go about program building. And then lastly, it's an example of staff leadership and problem solving. You heard about, this is Amy Cam has an idea and she is able to pursue it. And then very importantly, get the support from Principal Cook and others to make it happen. So, but that's just example of staff leadership, of partnerships, and then also really asking our students to do, big meaningful work is just a great combination. And so thank you, James, and thank you, Amy, very much for getting this together. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for your support as we go about this work.
Great. So let me move on. I'm going to share my screen and show you. So another big piece that's coming up is kindergarten registration. That begins in full force on Monday. We have a new website for student registration and enrollment that that it will be is clearer, and it will be launching on Monday. And also has, as you see, a kindergarten specific area where we help folks understand both what documents they need and also the process for registration. We are starting partly because of COVID. We're going to be doing an online registration piece. And so families, if they don't want to or don't need the support, can do registration fully online. This is just the first step of that registration process. The important thing here is that it's thanks to Google and their It's translatable into, I don't know, that looks like about 100 different languages. And so the whole, I'll just do one example here. You'll see that all the directions, the guidance on the left and everything else turns into, is translated on the fly. So just a great opportunity. We will also have online, in-person appointments as well. Folks can schedule appointments online. And we will be, and everything we're doing is translating. And so if anyone needs help with the registration process or deciphering documents, any support, they can have in-person meetings as well. So we'll do that combination. But we will allow families to sort of streamline the process by being able to do it online, uploading documents. We review them and then we follow up with them if we have any questions for them. So that's a good step. And again, March 1st is when that starts happening. We had one kindergarten forum, which you can get to from a recording of that, and which was you heard about, I think, went very, very well. And we'll have another one next week as well, where we have principals, but also most importantly, kindergarten teacher from each of our elementary schools. And they really were the stars of the show on that. A big appreciation to Christine Castle, who's been leading the effort on revamping our registration efforts and put together that forum, and also Grant Harris and Greg Bach for helping put together, and Mike Muniz too. All of them working together to stand up our shift in making registration a little more user-friendly and effective for folks. So, and then I'll move on to our update for tonight. Let me just share my screen. Second here. Sorry, just technical difficulties. Here we go. Okay, so I hope you can see the presentation. So we've done the first two there already. So I'll skip right to the COVID update. So these are citywide cases, which we try to give you up every time. So you can see over the last 2 weeks, the cases in the city are just flat, really. 60, 64, they've been hovering on 55, but they haven't gone up or down more than 5 or 10 cases in the last 2 weeks since our last meeting across the city. I have not looked at the BioBot wastewater recently. I did hear it's staying low, but that's the information I have for now. In our schools, we've had 9 new cases since over the last 2 weeks. That includes vacation, obviously, and we continue to get reports from the Department of Health over vacation as well. That's up to date. 128 cases, 117 resolved, 11 currently right now. All the cases recently have had no close contacts because folks were out on vacation. No in-school close contacts, I should say, because folks were out on vacation. Here's the summary of how they are in school. So 2 weeks ago at our last meeting, there were 9 total cases. Now there are 11. You can see how, it just adjusts a little bit school by school. But we have 4 schools, 4 schools, plus our district-wide staff where there are no cases at this point. So, sort of just a steady state at this point. So big important update about our group testing or pool testing. It turns out that the term pool testing confuses people because they think we're testing pools when we're not. We're obviously testing humans. So we're going to try to move towards group testing. But that is at O'Malley School yesterday. So that is, we're working with Beauport Ambulance. They are doing a fantastic job. They actually do the testing, go class to class. You can see a cart there that they use. You can see, I think, some students. The students come out into the hallway from their classes. They spread apart, blow their noses, and they self-swab. And then they take it from there and then go on to the next class. So that's the Beauport folks. They're doing a great job. They're interacting with the students really well. Apparently they're somewhat humorous, which is also always helpful. So here's the update. We started at Gloucester High School on Monday, did tests with the cream cohort on Monday, the crimson cohort on Tuesday. So far we tested 115 people. There were 8 negative pools. There were 5 pools from the Monday that were inconclusive. So those were retested today. inconclusive can really happen for one primary reason is what we've learned is that there's too much mucus in the sample. And that's just, we have some strategies on how to solve that. It's ultimately better nose blowing just prior to testing. Okay, not that complicated. But those are being retested. And then O'Malley started on Tuesday, 144 people tested, staff and students. Those are 25 pools. We're organized on 25 pools. All those test results have been returned, and they've all been negative so far as well. So no positive results so far after testing about 260 people. We're going to, that'll increase. That number will increase. We'll continue to do outreach. So a few things so far. We've hired 2 staff members who are helping with support, administration, testing, communications, and also the follow-up testing. They started 2 days ago. I got to give a tremendous thanks to Jeff Parco, who's been really working just so hard to get this up and running and doing a great job partnering with Project Beacon, who are our testing partners, Beauport, working with the nurses at the high school, so Leora and Sylvia, and then at the middle school, Kim and Alicia, working with Ryan Marshall to bring on our new staff here. Just folks are doing a great job standing this up and getting it together. We've had a slow start on participation, but that's expected. You know, we had to do a lot of outreach, our outreach over vacation as well. As you know, we've been moving very quickly on this. So we expect that to grow, and especially as people hear about the success. Very importantly, the commissioner announced today that the state support for pool testing will extend till April 18th. So with the state support, we'll be able to continue testing. We were gonna, as I think you know, we're going to test until March 28th and then assess, because that's when the state program was going till. We can now test until April 18th and take that time to assess how it's going, if it's helping us with new information. So we'll have time, and each week we'll add more and more students, more and more staff. Our target is in the 70 or 80% of all folks, all students and staff at O'Malley in the high school to test. And the last piece is just in terms of outreach, in terms of building more people, getting more people registered. So we do have a pool testing website now that was put up about just a week before vacation. We provided emails and text messages to GHS and O'Malley families. Those are all translated like they always are. Email to staff, the website as well. I mean, the website is actually part of our Back Together GPS website. It's on that. It's linked now as a pool testing, portion of the website. We have FAQs on that. We'll continue to do outreach. The principals already followed up yesterday with news about how it went the first 2 days. Every week we'll keep on communicating. We'll do more Facebook communication. We'll try to enlist GHS and O'Malley parents. And we're doing direct outreach to EL families. So phone calls, we're providing translated consent forms if paper's easier to use. We're talking people through registration on the phone. So we'll continue to outreach directly to our EL families. One last thing I'll say on this is that if you realize that we tested Monday and Tuesday and all the results are back, we got the results back within 48 hours, within 24 hours for all of our pools. So that's a great turnaround. So just great start on that. Very few bumps, honestly, but we'll continue to outreach so we build their registration and build participation. Any questions on the group testing before I go ahead? Anyone?
I don't have any questions. I just want to comment. There's been at least a couple good exchanges about the topic on Facebook among parents. And mostly it's been really positive. So it's, the word is spreading and people are talking about it and thinking about it. So at least it's out there.
That's good to hear. Yeah, and that will help. And if more people can chime in on that or use your own social media accounts to pass the word, that's really great. Jonathan, I don't know if you can see people. I see Samantha has her hand up.
Okay, and Laura does too. So Samantha, then Laura.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I meant Laura. That's my mistake.
Okay. It's a compliment to me. Just, do you have a sense of the folks who aren't participating yet? Is it simply, sort of more communication, more answering of questions, or is there resistance anywhere?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yesterday in our communication to direct, to parents from Principal Beatty and Principal Cook, we responded directly to some of the concerns we've heard. One of them was people were thinking, which is, listen, this is all very confusing. So any misunderstanding here is understandable. People were getting confused and thinking that if your group or your pool tested positive, you'd have to quarantine for 10 days, which isn't the case. So we try to be very clear that if your pool tests positive, you don't quarantine, you come into school the next day and test and do the retest immediately, like the first thing you do. And then only then, if you're positive, do you have to quarantine or isolate, miss any school. And then of course, we do contact tracing like that, regularly. But that doesn't mean, for example, if there's no correlation between being in someone's pool group or test group and necessarily being in close contact. So we need to keep on allaying people's concerns that they'll automatically become a close contact or have to quarantine if there's positive, a positive pool test. So that's one of the major ones. I think just part of it is waiting and seeing, that sort of thing. I've gotten a few emails, people saying, we're doing fine, why bother with this type of thing. So I think another piece is definitely just, it was happening over vacation. That's another piece. So those are some of the things we've heard, but we'll keep our ears to the ground. And certainly if you folks hear something that is blocking people, let me know, and we can adjust our communications, adjust our FAQs, adjust the website, that sort of thing.
Sure, and I'll share it also on our school committee Facebook group, the links to that.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I don't see any other questions.
Great. So we're going to flip to the Department of Education is starting to do, or continuing really to adjust some guidelines. Just before vacation, they came out with some updates on transportation, which I'll just run through pretty quickly. They actually may not make much of an impact for us, but I'll explain that. And then Adam Mayo's here too if you have questions. So first off, distancing. They are lifting the capacity and physical distancing limits for buses. At the high school, that's elementary school. Middle and high school, same thing, except for if you are a high community prevalence, a community with high prevalence of COVID, you have to limit it to 2 students per bus bench. Also, students need to be assigned, assigned seat assignments in their guidance as well. So we're doing a fair bit of this. So we already have assigned seats. One of our concerns on this is if we become a community with high prevalence, if we rejigger buses, middle or high, and expand the capacity of them, and then we go high prevalence again, you've got to redo the buses completely again. And that's a major, major challenge. So we're a little wary of that. At this point, anyway, the demand isn't that great. We only have 3 students on the wait list at this point. We can certainly accommodate them with this new guidance. We are wary about adding a whole bunch more folks to any given bus because it would certainly make contact tracing a lot more difficult than it is right now. With assigned seats, 1 student per bench, that sort of thing. Knowing where they sit, and also fewer kids, it's easy to keep track through video or through the bus or bus monitors about contact tracing, and that's worked fine so far. So we're a little wary of that. We definitely can take folks on a one-by-one basis, and as folks reach out, or as they, we let them know that we can add people. I also do think that many families who've been sort of gotten into the routine of driving may not want to put kids on the bus, but we certainly can add them. We're capable of adding more students on the bus. I'm just not clear we want to add it completely. Another piece of their guidance, which is kind of curious, is that they do insist that all windows stay open. We've been keeping our windows open. But they also say, because if you have more kids on more seats with the windows open, you have to create a rain plan. They make a few suggestions. One is that families should send their students on the bus in full rain gear, or that we should distribute disposable ponchos for students who need them. So that's really what they put in there. So not sure those are practicable, but certainly, which is another reason we may not want to overload the buses. But we can also have the open the windows just a little bit when it's a bad rainy day. So it's good guy. It's a step forward. I'm not sure at this point it changes things dramatically. For many places, one of the limiting factors for getting kids into school has been their buses. That hasn't really been the case in Gloucester. For us, it's really been the distancing, and the size of, and the difficulty at lunch, that sort of stuff. So buses haven't been a limiting factor. But again, if some parents do want to be added to their bus and stop driving, we can certainly be, I expect we can, or Adam expects we can handle that increase if it comes. So questions for folks?
Melissa?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Because I called in on my phone because it seems
Yeah.
like I'm having problems here. Thank you. So my question is to the superintendent or to Adam through the superintendent, and you may not be able to answer this, but I'm just hearing that report. It made me think of a question. We've been hearing a lot about traffic lately, and of course, there's a lot more drivers this year than usual because of COVID. So I'm wondering if there's any kind of figure or report on if we didn't have COVID, how many less cars would be at the schools right now? In other words, you said there's 3 students on a wait list. How many more students would we be transporting on the bus this year if we didn't have the COVID regulations in place? And I don't know if you have the answer tonight, but I would just like to know that answer going forward in our conversations as we talk about the new school being built. I mean, obviously there's traffic at every school, but it seems like there's trying to be more of a focus on that right now. And it's just, to me, it's a difficult time to focus on traffic when we know a lot more students are being driven in because of COVID that may not be driven in starting in September, or maybe in April or May by the sounds of it, more kids go back to school.
Right, yeah. So the only thing I think we could be able to do is look at past years, because past years would be comparable to what we would expect in any given year. I wouldn't expect you to have those numbers in terms of how many kids we bused last year, but you continue to amaze me, so maybe you do. But do you know how many kids we bused in total last year? And if not, we'll get that back to the committee.
Yeah, I can, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, so I can definitely get those numbers back. So essentially what we've done is we've cut our buses down in half in capacity. So you're looking at doubling the number of students on a bus. So our buses, you can put 3 to a seat in K through 8, and according to regulations, and that's where the DESI guidelines come in, is that they're actually allowing schools to put 3 kids to a seat. For me, that's a little nerve-wracking. That's a close proximity on a 38 to 42 inch bench seat. So basically we would be doubling our capacities again where we're at. So you're looking at probably 50 to 60 kids on a bus. Right now we're at 25. So at O'Malley, you would times that by 9 buses.
Okay.
I think, Melissa, would that be helpful if we got you? So I think the best way to determine how many we would have in a typical year is looking at just immediate past years and comparing to what we have. And as Adam says, it probably would be double, but we can get you some better numbers on that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we just heard, I don't know if anyone watched the city council meeting last night, but at the end, Councilor O'Hara was talking about the nightmare at West Parish. And while I understand there are issues over there because of the design, it's my understanding that it was getting better at one point, and I can't help but wonder if it's just super ugly right now because of the extra cars coming in. So I'm just trying to understand all the traffic issues based on COVID versus non-COVID, what's realistic going forward and what's going to change going forward. So that's all. So thank you.
They're actually, that is absolutely the case at West Parish. Things are worse than they have in the past because of the fewer kids on buses, more kids in cars. But also remember, people also need to remember is that folks also aren't carpooling typically, where in the past they would have. You might have a minivan show up with kids from 2 families or more, whereas right now they of course aren't doing that. So that's another way that cars will be limited as well. So it just isn't fair at all in any way, shape, or form to compare traffic, whether it's school-based traffic or whether it's traffic on 128 this year to any other year, because it's all completely different, right? You'd think if you live in the Boston area, there actually is no rush hour these days, which of course is fiction. So yeah, it isn't really fair to judge how the schools are operating this year in terms of traffic, whether it's better in some places and worse in others. So.
And I will just say that Talina and I did work very hard at the beginning to fill as many seats on those West Parish buses as possible. Ultimately, it's up to the parents' decision to decide if they're going to transport their student or not. We still had some open rooms or open seats even after that, and we're continuing to add it as they come in. So if a parent asks, we have an open seat. We're definitely, filling the buses to their capacity right now, and trying to decrease that. The other concern or issue that we have is the ability to switch from remote to in-person learning each trimester or semester. So we have a different wave of kids coming in and out that we deal with.
Okay.
And one more question while Adam's here, because we usually don't get to speak directly to Adam. So if I may, Jonathan, it's a quick answer.
Well, Joel's got his hand up, but yeah, go ahead.
So we bus the kids to veterans from Harrison Ave area so that no one has to cross the lights. We deem that as a safety issue. Are those kids all being bused, or we had to say no because of capacity limits?
So we have no buses going to veterans at this point right now, except for special ed buses due to capacity limits and the 2-mile walkout distance.
Do we have students
So
that
do
go
we
to
know if kids are
veterans?
walking?
But do we have students that go to veterans who live in that area, or do they go to East Gloucester?
There's
Yeah,
events. That's why this policy was put in place.
Sorry, Joel, could you just repeat that? I couldn't hear that.
I believe the catchment area is for vets, and that's why this policy was put in place, because we kind of said if we're going to make the Harrison Ave kids come this way across the intersection, we should put them on a bus for it.
Yeah, we should look into that.
Yeah, I want to make sure no kids are walking across those lights. I mean, that's why we have this policy.
Right. Yeah, that's certainly the intention of the policy. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Joel, you had a question?
Yeah, I think the number was there were only 3 children on the wait list. Is that 3 children who would otherwise be eligible, or does that include everybody? When being eligible, is that my understanding is this year, unless you met the strict definition for being eligible for a bus, you're otherwise not eligible. You weren't going to get consideration, meaning if you're within 2 miles or whatever the status is. So those 3, are they people that are 2 miles plus, or are they 3 period, like inner 2 miles, inner 1 mile, that sort of stuff?
2 of them are at O'Malley, and they are coming back from remote. And one of them is at Beeman, and they are under the 2 miles.
But otherwise, I guess my curiosity would be, so obviously I see vets every day, and it's awful over there right now with no buses. I've visited Beeman for drop off. I've visited O'Malley for pickup, and I've visited West Parish for drop off and pickup. And it just seems like if there was a way to to reduce the number of people driving their students to school, including opening this up to students who are less than the 2 miles and seeing if there is demand. There might not be. It might just be these 3. But I feel like people within the 2 miles assume that they weren't going to be taken this year regardless. And so maybe they're not on a wait list because they feel like a wait list isn't available to them. And so I just, I think it's incumbent upon us to see if there is demand, because, O'Malley, oh my God, it's nuts everywhere. I haven't been to Plumco, I haven't been to East Gloucester. I can't imagine that it's much better on those streets over there, but the schools that I have been to is absolutely nuts. And so if there's a way to see if there was, a desire in the community to alleviate that, I think we should at least explore it. And maybe there won't be, but as you mentioned, it's the parents' decision whether or not they want to add their child to a bus. But if they know, for instance, if veterans got a bus, would there be 20 or 30 kids who would take that bus? And what would that do to the walking population? What would it do to the driving population? That sort of stuff. If children within a mile or mile and a half of Beeman were able to get on the bus, what would that do for the mornings and the afternoons if they were out there?
So I think we'd start with the policy as it stands, which is 2 miles. I think we could, let's look into the, Adam will work on looking and we'll work with principals to get to make sure folks know that can happen. And I think we need to go in steps here. What I think would be very hard is to open it up, full bore for everyone, all comers, and then have to, say no, and then make choices on that rather than open up, go bit by bit. But I think it does make sense. I think it's a good point, Joel, in being proactively reaching out to identify, to understand rather, what the demand is, and then start filling from there. I think we need to be careful about, filling them, to capacity. Yeah.
If I could just push back on that, but that seems like the same argument for not, going in person to school, right? We had the discussion back over the summers. It makes sense to begin this hybrid program, and then all of a sudden have to take it away and send kids back out if numbers got too high. We're still running that risk that at any moment, we could have to go full remote. There was an outbreak in the community, but we decided that it was worth the risk to send students into these school buildings, knowing that it might get all pulled out from under them. You'd think it'd be the same thing with the bus. You'd say, well, while we have the availability to do a good thing, let's do it. And everyone who's getting on the bus know that at any moment, just like with the schools, this could go back away if guidance changes,
I think the biggest difference for me on that versus the school is that proximity of 2 or 3 kids per seat, and also the difficulty of contact tracing on the buses, because of it's harder to document and to know where kids are, because there's much less supervision on a bus in terms of adult to student ratio and knowledge of where kids are. So
aren't all of our buses being video recorded at all times? So if there was a positive case on a bus, you could pull the tape and see exactly where everyone was sat.
That's part of the way we've done it, and you get dozens and dozens of kids on there. It's harder and harder to decipher the video, because listen, and that's the importance of contact tracing. I mean, it's really an essential piece on this, and so again, I want to be clear to folks, so I think increasing the number of folks on a bus does make sense at this point. I think doing it in a way that's moderation and controlled in a way where we can make sure it continues to be safe, and that includes we can easily contact trace, really matters. But so we'll start to reach out to families, get a sense of where people are, understand how many folks want to come back, and go from there. But we'll come back to you to help you understand how we're doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on. So Brian LaFata's here to give us update on athletics, because we are back to the fall apparently, fall 2 season. So he's going to give us a update and wrap up on the winter season, and then tell us how we're going to move forward with the fall 2 season. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everybody. Always appreciate the opportunity to come present on here. Before I get into this, I did want to piggyback quickly on what Megan and Mia had brought up earlier tonight with the 2 student athletes that were received the Moynihan Lumber Student Athlete of the Month Awards. Andrew Coelho, a soccer and track athlete, got it for December, and Mia Sala in the most recent month of January as a field hockey player and ice hockey player. Those awards are very prestigious. Actually, it's not just our conference, it's actually our entire North Shore area, every high school, private, public, small schools, large schools. So they only have about not even 20 recipients per year, because 2 per month for just the school months. So for us to already have 2 of them in this entire region is tremendous. I know my first year here as athletic director, we did get a couple that year, and actually also got the student athlete of the year from that, Tracy Wood. So those 2 athletes, student athletes, great representatives, obviously in the classroom, in the community with volunteering, and on the athletic fields, have been great. And they will be up for obviously the year end 1 student athlete. So we'll keep the fingers crossed, but we still have a few months that hopefully a few more of our student athletes I'll be able to put up there to nominate. So I did want to piggyback. I appreciate Mia and Megan bringing that up earlier. That was great, but I did want to stress how prestigious that really is for us. So As far as tonight, quickly, I did want to, we did have a quick review 2 weeks ago when we talked at the winter season, when we were about 3/4 of the way through the season. All in all, the winter season did go well. We did obviously have a hiccup towards the end with some COVID cases and close contacts, but we did fight through it. The kids were great, the coaches, everyone abiding by quarantine and their guidelines. And we did wrap up the season. The majority of teams, we did play basketball, ice hockey, gymnastics, swim and dive, did get a typical, they got about 50 to 80% of what they usually would play in a typical year. So not knowing if we're going to play sports this year, that was a positive. A lot of parents, even some of the ones that may have lost a few games, did have reached out, just happy that the kids did get on the ice or on the court, in the pool. So it did work out all in all pretty well. One other quick note, the swim and dive team did actually record their best ever record in the history of Gloucester High School swim and dive. It's a fairly newer program, but a very successful year that coaches Laura Dale and Mercedes Lane were very quick to point out to me when the last virtual swim score came in that this is the best record they've ever had in our short history. So that was exciting. But now we are moving on to fall two. As we had met with and discussed back in the early fall, this was the rare year that the MIAA was going to make our typical 3 sports seasons into 4 this year. So the fall 2 season begins this week and runs until the end of April vacation, Sunday the 25th. It does include just a few sports, fall cheer, football, and indoor track and field. Obviously, all 3 of those are typically in other seasons. MIAA wanted to hold off, get obviously a couple seasons under our belt before going to these sports that at the time seemed as if they could be higher risk, and wanted to make sure they had good guidelines and protocols for them. So as far as a brief overview of what the season will look like for football, there is a 7-game schedule set in place for those teams. The cheer team would be, at this time, it says cheering home games only, but now on the table is the MIAA and the MSAA, who oversees cheer, have started to look at the options of allowing cheer teams to travel to away games and also conduct virtual meets. In this day and age, cheerleading competitions are very big for them. So the opportunity to do a virtual meet, similar to how we did our swim, the girls would be able to compete, get it videoed here in our field house, and then the judges would be sent all the videos. So that's a great opportunity possibly for the cheer team. And finally, the track and field. For indoor track and field would be 5 dual meets. The big difference is the majority of this indoor season will actually be conducted outdoors. They do suggest that we do go outdoors, try and run the indoor meets, indoor events, which are slightly different for a few of the running events as compared to outdoors. So we will be, as far as those go, it is still to be determined whether they will be a virtual meet, similar again to swimming, where it'll be just our kids out there competing, and then our opponent would be at their site competing, and then we would just match the scores. Or there is discussion that these dual meets are allowed with specific guidelines and protocols, whether or not we would travel to another school's outdoor facilities and hold track meets, and vice versa, schools come here. So those are still to be determined. As far as guidelines, we are in the same boat as we have been for the prior 2 seasons. Same general safety guidelines, social distancing, hand sanitizer, mask being worn at all times, sanitizing all of the equipment being used, daily COVID screenings that we conduct here, temperature checks. All of that is very similar to what we've done. Thankfully, at this point too, the good majority of our student athletes have actually participated in a prior season. So as they show up, they're aware of to do their QR code and get their COVID screening done. And when they show up, their masks need to be on. They should be on anyways before even entering the building, but they've got to be on. They can't be spacing out. They do get sick of me yelling at them constantly in case they are getting a little bit clustered too much. But that is the same. As far as sport-specific guidelines, each of the sports do have, starting at the top from the EEA, then down through all the various MIAA committees have approved the sports-specific committees, sports medicine committee, COVID-19 task force, and even the board of directors of the MIAA. I did have those guidelines sent on to you for your reference if you wanted to review some of it. A lot of them, especially for some of the sports, it's not even as much on the actual or in the events of playing. It's more of the preparation or the sidelines, or like we had for the winter, the bench space and no locker room situations like that. As I did earlier mention, the to be determined topics, there are just a few things. Spectator policies as far as total limits are still being discussed internally with the Northeastern Conference athletic directors, who we would then bring it to, obviously, our principal and superintendent and Karen Carroll up the line to make sure we're all on the same page. Prior seasons, it has been just home fans, 2 people in the house related to the home players. There are some, like you saw with Desi, there has been some for the transportation limits lifted a little bit. There are slightly that for outdoor events. So there's nothing set in stone. We are meeting with all the other athletic directors to come up with a consistent policy before making any decisions on what we would do for spectators at outdoor events. The cheer topics, as mentioned, whether or not they would be traveling to away games. Initially, the plan was that they would not. The MIAA and all those committees did come back, changing tune and left the door open that teams could travel, as well as if they will be conducting virtual meets. And then again, just the handling of the track and field, whether it will be in person or virtual. The last thing on the agenda that I brought here tonight was just to have on the radar. We are starting the 3rd of the 4 seasons. Right after April vacation, the spring season would be starting. Obviously, that's about 5 weeks later than it typically would with these shortened seasons. So the typical sports for your spring are baseball, lacrosse, both boys and girls, outdoor track and field for both boys and girls, softball, and boys and girls tennis would be run at that time. And then the last one you see on there is wrestling. Wrestling is typically a winter sport, but they have obviously pushed that off to the last season. I think they really want to get a good idea and see how some of the other, what they've considered previously high-risk sports, the hockeys, the footballs, see how those go before getting into the wrestling guidelines. Wrestling, as far as I understand too, by being at that time of year, would very likely be conducted outdoors. So this would be something we would be putting the wrestling mats out on the probably the turf field at Newell Stadium, and possibly putting the lights on and having wrestling out there. But that is, as I said, it's still a couple months away. But we are waiting on more guidance from those now that the fall 2 season has started to get underway. So that's where we are with everything at this point. I didn't know if there's any other questions that you may have.
Samantha? Samantha?
Thanks. Brian, thanks as always. Just a protocol question. If there's snow on the field or the track, will it be cleared, or will it be canceled?
That's a case-by-case situation. A few weeks ago, I started reaching out with the DPW because we don't do any maintenance on there without checking with them. They oversee obviously all of our facilities, so I'm not going to go out there with any machine work or anything. We do have warranties on the turf that we have to be very careful. People have probably seen over the past few weeks at other school districts in other cities with plows out there or snow blowers. We have a very specific warranty with the city, so we don't do anything. Thankfully, I mean, once in a while we get one of those storms that the field gets covered, but being on the water right there, it does melt pretty good for us. So we've been fortunate at this point, and now we've just got to knock on wood that we don't get much more. It'll be a case-by-case scenario, though. The last snow that we did get this past weekend was very light and fluffy. So I think if something comes like that, it would be something maybe we would get leaf blowers out there to be able to lightly blow that off. But that's we'll do obviously anything possible. Football, I would prefer obviously not to bring them in the field house. We do have the space for it. We do with the larger field house only having approximately maybe 40 players in the program. It does fit well under the guidance of capacity in there. But as far as I'm concerned, I'd prefer to have the football team on the turf field at all times. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Laura.
Thank you. And thank you again, Brian. Is there any regulation on masks in the sense of like what kind of mask people are wearing?
For the first time since I think more in the fall, actually hockey did have some regulations, and sometimes have dealt with it in different cities have required things as far as if you play there. The football is very specific on what types of masks can be worn. The typical gaiter that you might see from the average person cannot be worn in football now, just more due to a safety issue of someone grabbing it by a tackle and choking someone. So there are specific guidelines as far as the types of masks that can and cannot be worn, especially in a sport such as football. With track and in cheer, it's not as specific. It's more open to their interpretation.
Right. I'm thinking more in terms of actual filtering potential for the more high risk sports, for football, or I didn't even think of it during basketball, but if they're actually having to wear surgical masks versus cloth masks or anything like that.
As long as it has multiple layers, I believe is the last. I'm not going to quote exactly what I would have to go through the EEA guidelines, but that has been the biggest thing stressed, is that it be multiple layers. Surgical masks, I'll be honest, are probably the most common I see in all the events we've had up to this point. And obviously those are allowed. And then you generally see Under Armour is a very popular mask that a lot of the athletes wear, that is, you can even see the thickness on it. On their face. It is designed for sports and athletics.
That's right, Brian. Looking through the protocols for football, they're very clearer than I've seen anywhere else, about 2 and 3 layers type of thing. I mean, we say multiple layers, and that's what the state says, but they're pretty clear about that with football.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Kathy.
Yes, I'm just wondering, with our new pooled testing, it'd be curious to know how many other of the schools in our conference are doing it. Not that it changes anything, but it would be interesting to know after the season or during the season if that's kind of helping all the schools, keep some of the cases down. And my other question is, I know the other seasons have had kind of a little bit of conditioning or prep coaching, and not coaching necessarily, but leeway to get together prior to their actual season beginning. Is that going to happen for spring as well?
For the spring season, yes. I'll meet with James about that. This is the one season, to be honest, that we've really looked at the out of season coaching rule from the MIAA, which the MIAA has waived for this entire year. We really haven't waived it. We wanted our kids and coaches to really stay on course with how we typically would run a season. But due to the spring sports losing an entire season last year, we are talking about a few weeks early allowing the coaches to start running voluntary workouts, conditioning, or if it's lacrosse, getting on the turf maybe together, because of the fact, as I said, they lost an entire season. So for some of these coaches, they haven't seen these student athletes in 2 years. And a kid going from his sophomore to senior year has a lot of growth. And as I said, it has been waived by the MIAA, but then it comes down to a school by school decision that we are leaning in that direction. We haven't made a definite decision, but myself and James will talk about that.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Looks like Samantha.
Then I just had one more question.
Okay, it's hard. Go ahead, Samantha. I can't see it. Go ahead.
How are we encouraging the fall 2 season athletes to participate in the pool testing?
We haven't done any, wait, am I on mute?
No, you're not.
No,
on mute.
we can hear you.
Okay. We haven't done any specific outreach to the students, to the athletes, student athletes at all on this. I think it makes sense, actually, thinking about it right now, Samantha. It's a good suggestion. Brian, maybe you and I can talk about that. And I don't know, we can't really make a requirement. You can't, but we could certainly urge them or have specific outreach to them, perhaps. But yeah, Brian and I, how if we connect on that tomorrow?
Yep.
It would have been so helpful to have in the previous season. So it would be great to take advantage of it while we have it.
It's a good idea. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Brian, thank you very much. And do we have any 4 sport athletes potential athletes for the year?
We do. I've seen a couple come across the registration list, so I will definitely be sure to make a point of that once we get to the end of the year.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian, as always. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your leadership on this and just being rock solid and helping lead the whole crew so capably. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ben.
So just one last thing, and this is really sort of more details to come because we don't know any details yet, but I just want to make sure, I'm sure most of you saw the news reports either last night or this morning. Commissioner Riley and the governor have made it crystal clear that that time is right for more students, for more schools and districts to have more in-school learning, in-person learning. And they're really basing on the things that I think, we've looked at quite closely. Rates are dropping. Most recently, rates are dropping, obviously, here and everywhere, with vaccinations increasing. But also something that we've been paying attention since the very beginning, since the summer, is just the impact on students, potential, and now the very real impact on students learning, but also especially social, emotional, mental health. We talked about that earlier tonight, obviously. I think this is one of the real strengths of what we've been able to do here in Gloucester is from the beginning, we talked about, the myriad risk for students. And that was one of the primary reasons that I think we worked so hard to make sure our students were in school. But it's become clearer and clearer through studies and experiences that students who haven't been in school are really suffering in lots of ways across the state and across the country. So, Commissioner Riley was very clear in saying all of that, and saying yesterday, as well as the governor, about getting more students in school. Now, one of the first things they said was the aim was to get all elementary students in for 5 days per week. We're obviously already doing that. So that's that's where we're ahead of a lot of folks. We also want to increase pool testing, and we're doing that. So that's a real positive for us. He expects to bring out a proposal, or a plan, I should say, a plan within the next couple of weeks, and have the State Board of Education vote on it shortly after that. They have a March 23rd meeting, but likely that they'll set up a meeting before that. He told us a call today, did not give us very many details at all, but that elementary guidance would go into, or regulations really would go into effect sooner. And then they would space out any changes for middle and high school. What those changes are, we don't know yet. It's unlikely that they'll go, it's my opinion, I should say, that unlikely to go below 3 feet. And that for us is in some of our schools and some of our classrooms, we're at 3.5 feet. And we've been doing very well at that distance. So we don't know what changes are going to come, but we'll obviously look at them closely. We'll make sure you and the community know what they are. We'll see how we can make changes, or if we need to make changes, or if we're able to make changes. Still, obviously, want to get more and more students into our classrooms with our excellent teachers and all our staff. But we'll have to see what the state comes up with, and we'll make sure you're informed and the community is well informed about it. I don't know if yes.
Samantha?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we talk a lot about the benefit to students' mental health with them being in school. But the other piece that I think is getting overlooked, that I think the New York Times is really trying to highlight, is just the mental health of parents right now, right? And how unsustainable it is for parents to continue to have their kids not in school, right? So just sort of the mental health of an entire family system, and how important that is in Gloucester right now. And I've just heard it from parents over and over again that, their overall family system is functioning so much better because their kids are in school. And I think we really do need to pay attention to that, because if the overall family system isn't functioning well, the kids aren't going to do well regardless. So I really just want to highlight that's so incredibly important. And I know that myself and so many other parents are just so grateful. So I just want to keep that top of mind.
Thank you, Sam. I would add to that. First, I think I couldn't agree with you more, 100% on that. I want to bring up a slide which I didn't show tonight. I show it almost every time, but didn't. But I also, if I can get my, oh, I know, sorry. Oh, wait, can you see the presentation still? Okay, yeah, sorry, losing it. So this is a slide that we showed all during the summer and through the fall, and really just the last few meetings stopped showing it. But the first one is the academic, social, emotional, mental health needs. I mean, that's one of our principles for planning, for our students. I would add for our staff as well, for our staff to be, in school with their colleagues, many of whom are friends, and outside relations from outside of school, having purpose, having work, getting fed. I mean, emotionally and from students, and that also helps their families as well. So I think it's another thing we said, I'm not sure it's on the slide, but we also talked a lot about, having school helps the community run, and that has become so clear to us starting last March. It helps about employment, it helps about family units, as you said, Sam, but it really, having our schools up and running helps our community run. And it's just so crystal clear now. So, these are things that folks have been struggling with, talking about, but especially that last bullet there talks about the myriad risks that our students face. And not that, it is still hard for all our folks, our families, our students, our teachers. It's hard for all of us, but I do really believe to the bottom of my heart that our folks are in better shape because we've been able to have them in school as much as we have. And if we can do it more, we'll all work on that together like we worked on it so far. So I'll step off my soapbox there. Thank you.
Laura?
Thanks. So firstly, I just wanted to, as a parent in the schools, fully 100%, it means everything. And comparing our experience as Gloucester public school parents to other districts nearby and far away where schools are not open, the impacts are incredible. They're enormous. And so I feel very grateful to you and to the staff and all the teachers and everyone who has allowed our schools to open this year. It just has meant everything. Going into the warmer months, is there a plan to put the tents back up? Just thinking about, how we're moving forward into the spring, hopefully. That's been such a great part of this year, has been the ability to go outside for the kids and to have some of their time outside. So just wondering about that.
Sure. I won't say there's a plan on it yet. And I appreciate your optimism of heading to the spring. I support that fully. Okay. But I think just to tie it to, possibly new regulations, one of the other major limiting factor for us is lunch, as you all know. And that guidance may or may not change. I've got no idea. But the idea of having lunch in tents could really work, And if that allows us to move towards full school days, and I'm just, at this point, this is just, this is not a plan. This is, talking through some things out loud. But anyway, that's something to look at in terms of lunch specifically, but other programs as well, and if if there's a path that tents would help on any of that, I think we definitely should look at it. And I think we'd be better positioned to utilize those than maybe we were in the fall.
Thanks.
Anything else of the superintendent before we move on? Seeing none, we'll go to committee reports. There's only building and finance. So Kathy, you want to give us an update?
Sure. So the Building and Finance Subcommittee met on this past Monday, February 22nd. We spent a lot of time going over the fiscal year 22 budget book and all the tabs and all the information. So that has been sent out and is available for us as part of the packet. I don't think I need to say much more than that. There's a lot of good information in there. It's literally line by line of our budget, very transparent presentation of the budget, and very thorough in terms of somewhat of explanation about Chapter 70, our grants, our enrollment, just everything that encompasses, what drives our numbers and where our funding sources come from, both state and from the city level. So recommend the public and everybody kind of get really familiar with all that detail. But we do know from priorities from the presentations, what our incremental asks are for this coming fiscal year, and that did not change. We also voted on, no, did we vote? No, we did not vote on the public hearing document, but that will be coming up at one of our school committee meetings where we have to vote for the public hearing to be posted and what that information is. We discussed the dishwasher that will be included and is included in the design for the new school. That dishwasher will not be able to do pots and pans as well as reusable trays. We heard some really good information from Martha Jo Fleming, our food service director, on the costs associated with our current system of compostable materials versus incremental staff and other items regarding using the dishwasher for reusable trays. On Laura's suggestion, I reached out to the Cape Ann Clean Coalition or whatever, and Susan Hogue, who I spoke with, said she was not the expert, but they'll try to find us some information on the environmental pros and cons of different decisions. So she thought that was a good question and something we should definitely have as part of our information that we incorporate as we figure out what the implementation and full use of that dishwasher would be. We went over a salvage list from East Gloucester and Veterans Memorial School. One, so that we know that it's there, and two, in case anybody had anything else that they might think should be on it. We'd like to hear that sooner than not, because that's the way, if school's being demolished, they'll take those things and put them in safekeeping for reuse with the new school. What else? We went over our open tickets. There really are, the DPW continues to make terrific service, quick turnaround. When things are not taken care of, there's usually a really good reason. There's some exploration that has to happen, or they need more information, but it's not because they're not getting to them. They're getting assigned, and most of our tickets are coming off and going on and coming off in a very reasonable amount of time. So we continue to be extremely grateful for both their dedication, their attention, and their really quality execution for the needs of the school committee or the school community. So please thank our DPW director, Mike Hale. He has definitely a great team that we are grateful to have. And I think that is everything from our meeting.
Any questions? Okay, then we'll move on to our act.
You went mute.
There we go. I get it. Press the button, right? We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is acceptance of is action items. And the first one is an acceptance of the grant from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for Elementary and Secondary Relief Fund 2 grant in the amount of $1,975,620. And I so move.
Second.
Is there any discussion or explanations?
Yeah, could
Sure.
I'd like to just offer the committee a little update on this. So as we shared with you in the last budget update, the presentation, which would have been at the full school committee meeting and also at BNF, is that this is a grant from the federal government through the state. It's based on our Title I allocation. We have not yet allocated any of these monies to anything yet. we are holding on to it. And as this spring goes along, we'll start building contingencies based on what the federal government or really the state government expects from us for next fall, for FY22, I should say. That's including summer work for students. It also could be used this spring. So for example, we mentioned tents for today, for example, or pool testing costs or other costs that may come up, which we haven't built in yet because if the regulations change, for example. So we're holding this money back and not allocating it yet until we have a clear idea of what the state expects of us for the spring and then going to the new school year. But it can be used through 2020, the 2022-2023 school year as well. So this is probably the most flexible, certainly in terms of time frame, than any of the grants have been yet, I'd say. But just want you to know that at this point, we haven't, don't yet have it allocated and wouldn't expect to have allocated at this point.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, well, we're always grateful for almost $2 million.
Absolutely.
Maria, could we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
Mr. Favazza,
Yes.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Oh, yeah.
and Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Okay, it carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next order of business is, as you all know, next week we were going to reach the sort of the benchmark of having kids in school for 100 days, which is relatively unique in this state and very unique in this country. So it was thought that, and Laura has crafted a letter to the editor from the school committee, just thanking teachers, and it's in the packet. I'm sure you've all read it, and everybody else. We've had to be very careful about making sure we included everybody, and that's important because it's been an effort across the board to accomplish what we've accomplished, and there's nobody involved in the school systems, from parents and students to janitors and nurses and teachers and administrators, DPW, bus drivers, on and on and on, that we could have done it without. So we just are asking for approval that we send this letter to the Gloucester Times. And I'll move that we do.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Laura?
I just want to ask I just want to be really 150% sure we didn't forget anybody in the letter to thank. So if you guys just to have other people's eyes on it would be really helpful.
Okay. Joel?
There are like a few minor grammatical errors or edits I'd like to suggest. I can do it in this meeting, or if this meeting, if it approves, I can just work with Laura offline. It's like super stuff like, super simple stuff like commas and stuff like that. Do we have to do it in the meeting, or can we can just vote it that there might be some grammatical changes? The content would not change.
I think that would be fine. Kathy?
I think we have been calling our custodians, not janitors. So I think that's probably the more appropriate word to use.
Okay.
So custodial staff?
Sure.
Okay. Anything else?
I can just confirm that when I used to negotiate the custodians contract, that they became custodians and do not prefer to be called janitors. That happened many, many years ago.
Okay. And, you know, if anybody comes up with anything else in the near future, like tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, that they can think of, then as long as we're not changing the intention of the letter, that I would think that that would be acceptable.
We did add parents, correct?
Parents and guardians are there.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, Maria, can we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
Mr. Favazza,
Yes.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Yes.
and Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously, and thank you, Laura, for all the time and effort you put into that. And if we can get a copy, we'll get it signed and off to the Times. Usually we just, my experience is it gets emailed and gets there instantly, and then followed up with a hard copy. Okay, so the next, go ahead.
I don't even know if you need a hard copy unless we need it for our records, just so you know.
Yeah. Okay. Update, East Gloucester Veterans Memorial School Building Committee update. I guess that's, there's not much that has happened since we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. There's some upcoming meetings. There's is it 40% design development? 60% design development submittal has to go in at the end of March. And the building committee will be having a number of meetings in March rather than just the one, just to approve different things. We'll be getting down to making decisions on some of the interior and exterior recommendations from the interior and exterior committees, as well as some of the whether we're going to go with preferred suppliers for different components of the building. But there's nothing terribly exciting about that. At the end of March, in conjunction with this submittal, I'm trying to coordinate with the council president that we have a joint school committee meeting, and we get a presentation from Dora and Whittier collectively, and we're able to, rather than have them do it twice, do it once, and we'll work out the details on that. But right now, what I'm thinking is that we would do it the last week in March, because that's we have a 5th Tuesday and a 5th Wednesday on those dates. I think we might have some conflict on one of them, but that might be a good time to do it. But we're still working out the details on that. Kathy?
I just want to add that I know Judy Crocker has reached out to both you and Ben from Massachusetts, Safe Routes to Schools. I had a really nice conversation with her today for a long time, where she went over kind of her take on the traffic study and her thoughts, which were generally very positive about what's been put forth from Dora and Whittier. But she also said there's a lot of things she can do to work with our district, both, not just the new school, but in other initiatives, as we want to have kids get, consider health and walking to school, or making it cool to be on the bus, and all these other things to address some of the traffic issues, in normal times. We can, there are initiatives we can work with her on and use their resources and all the wealth of information that they may have had success with. So some more to come on that. But I just want people to know that people are people are plugging in that we don't know and are giving us some positive feedback, which is great.
Good. Melissa?
Thank you. Can we ask that those that did the traffic study be at the meeting with us as well, so that City Council and the school committee can ask direct questions to traffic experts that have education and training in traffic? Because it seems like there's still a lot of questions out there, and it seems like there's a lot of information that's not true out there, and I think we really need to clarify what's going on with the study and what that study represents.
I have not talked to Dora and Whittier yet about the dates, so, and I will talk to them about whether Faisal could be there to work to explain the traffic study further. That, because like you say, there are questions about that in the council. You know, that's one of the hopes, is that we can get the air cleared about a lot of these issues and about the process going forward. So
I will,
Can I just ask you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I will, I would like to know ahead of time too, so I can ask my traffic commission just to come to observe. Okay, so to go back and forth. First of all, let's get this straight. It's going to take 2 years. Okay, people need to understand that, you know what, the place of the school is not going to change. Now you're talking about the structure, the insides, the outsides. Okay, the traffic commission, we have 2 years. I don't want to sit there and argue who's an expert and who's not an expert, who's been doing things and not doing things. We all want safety for our children. We have 2 years to come up with so many different things in so many different ways before the school's actually in place, and we can come up with great ideas. Some that we heard at the traffic commission was like, you know, it's misinformation. Absolutely. So we need to bring the correct information forward. Then there were some great ideas saying, you know what, one-way streets for in the morning, like we do at East Gloucester, or how we're gonna be doing that at St. Anne's. Remember, we did that at St. Anne's, Smith Street. You can only go down in the morning, and the way you can turn, and, you know, added traffic lights, you know, yield. I like the suggestion that, you know what, maybe for the first 3 months until people get used to it, have a police person there. So you know what, those were great. You know what, I think we can work together. Yes, we have expertise as far as engineering and structural sound and traffic. And yes, we have dedicated people who might not be as experienced as everyone wants, but I've worked with them for 13 years, actually more now, 2001 till now. And so I rely on them, I appoint them, and you know, they care about the community, they understand. Some of them might put too much of their own personal opinion, but you know what, that's all right, because we all have that. To sit there and argue right now constantly about who's right and wrong, well, why don't we all sit together like you're going to do with the city council, with the school committee, and I'll invite them and we ask. And then at a separate meeting or whatever, I can ask them, because they can go through the mayor, you know, what did you suggest? What did you think? And we'll work together. We have 2 years. Traffic could change no matter what. You know what? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know. And the same thing, I'm getting all the numbers from Fuller School Apartments. It's not as many bedrooms as you think the family's going to go. They keep bringing Camerons. I got that information from Camerons. Those people, 75% that's going to come already are in our school systems. They're already there. Okay. And 5 are designated. So it's only going to be like 30 apartments, 30 units. So you know what? Instead of saying, well, this is going to come here and that's going to end, and well, school's going to end, and we can work with it. We've made changes in this community. We made changes to Smith Street. Of all the clusters, okay, that we've ever did was when we used St. Anne's School for West Parish. What about that cluster? Going down Pleasant Street to go down Smith Street, you can't go down in the morning, but you can go down in the afternoon because the buses had to go down there. But yet they did it, didn't they? And you had stores there, you had ice cream parlors there, you had, you know, the St. Anne's was opened, you know, I mean, churches and everything else you can think of. They were having, it was pre-COVID, they had morning masses and elderly housing right there in your market. So that was a cluster, but yet we did it. We did it because we did it together. And I really think that, you know what, in all fairness, everyone wants to say this one, that one, or it's the mayor's fault. No, it's not. It's nobody's fault. And you know what, it's not, you know, it's something that we want our children to have safety. And like you said, before COVID on West Parish, was there a cluster there? Go all the time? Yes. Now with COVID and not going into the vehicles and not, you know, doing the carpool in the buses and stuff. And so we're going to work with that. Well, we have 2 years to decide and 2 years to put a plan and a budget. If we're going to have to do 3 months or 4 months of a police officer in the morning until parents and everyone else can get used to that, then we'll put it in the budget. It's now time to work with it. He just got $1 million. Ben's not going to spend it yet, right, Ben? No. So there you go. Let's get the experts to come. Let's get our traffic commission because they're compassionate, and let's work together. So please let me know so I can advise them ahead of time. It won't be a meeting. They can come by choice, but let them know. So they can't say we didn't let people know or we didn't invite and it's whatever. Let them come. And let it all hear, because it's 2 years we can work on this. And who knows what they're going to do, change the signs or maybe not allow trucks going down that way because that's how it's not supposed to be. Maybe finally they'll fix that and the GPSs won't bring them down Eastern Ave. And maybe we can have a lot of different things. But remember, no matter what, we had a Pepsi truck go on Pavilion Beach. Things happen. Things happen. We just gotta, you know, sometimes you just gotta go, okay, now how do we fix it? But we had a Pepsi truck at Pavilion Beach and they thought that was some kind of it's GPSs, it's things that we need to fix and we can. Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, is there anything included in your packet was the letter that we approved to be sent to Governor Baker regarding us advocating for that teachers and school staff be moved up in the placement of eligibility to receive the vaccine, but that has gone out, that has been mailed, so it's just there for your information. Anything else before we adjourn? Kathy?
I just want to also mention that the letter did go out to our state representatives regarding the MCAS. What word do I want? Hold on MCAS for this year. Yeah. It's also going to go out to the Board of Ed and the commissioner because, you know, there's still time between now and test time that they're targeting. And I think it's important we continue to advocate for that moratorium for this year. So those letters will be in our packet next time.
I did hear on the news that the federal government is going to be requiring testing to assess math and English in the 3 through 8, and as well as one high school class. So I don't know. It was just on the news, so I don't know any more details on that. But it may be out of the hands of the state. So.
Also on testing, you know, Leahy Health and Beth Israel got approved for 1,000 vaccines a day. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, that's not my primary care. But don't forget, you have Beth Israel, you have Burlington, you have Leahy, Beverly. You can have specialists. You can be going to you don't have to have your primary care. You can have a specialist that's in those hospitals and still be able to get your vaccine. So anyone, especially our teachers who have 2 or more comorbidities, please just give a little email out or a little shout out to your doctor and say, you know what, I am a teacher. Because, you know, I asked the question is, okay, so the next level that the hospitals are supposed to inform us, like Leahy, it was easy if you're all over 75. They know who was 75. They know who's 65. But they don't know if you're a school teacher. You know, they're not going to know in the system if you're a DPW worker. Okay, so I'm asking people just to give a little reminder, because I asked them, we had a meeting today because we wanted to go get regionalized here, and actually, you know what, I said, you know what, we'll do all teachers, we're gonna have to. And I joked around, I said, just give them all a pack of cigarettes for the day and give them something else. I mean, I was really upset like the rest of you. It's not fair, and I always say it's not fair because, you know, you want to push them in school. They are in school. All teachers been in school. And you know what I'm saying? Let's vaccinate them. So, we had a great meeting with the communities of Cape Ann, including Manchester and Ipswich, along with Senator Tara, to work with the hospital. We're getting there. You know, your letters are great. I mean, they're hearing us, but to me, that it's not fast enough. But so now that they gave back the vaccines to the hospital, I think it's going to move a little bit quicker. And if we can get the other one set up that we're trying, I think that we're gonna hear that we're going to be moving along faster. And like I said, it's 65, but 2 or more comorbidities with anyone over the age of 16. So that's a good thing that, you know, and especially with our dear children who have Down syndrome. So the fact is they need to get vaccinated also. So they're up there, but you can't get anywhere. So now that they're giving the hospitals, and that's including Mass General, Lawrence, it's all over, I think you'll see it moving a little faster. So that's just a little update on that.
Great. Anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, absolutely. Second, first, and third.
So moved.
Maria, roll call vote.
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
Mr. Favazza,
Yes.
Chairman Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Yes.
and Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned, and we'll see you all soon.
Good night, everyone. Be safe.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right.